Stop for just one moment. Before the world rushes in, before the noise of the day demands your attention, and before you take another step toward your responsibilities, I want you to realize something profound. You are not watching this by accident. Right now, in this very second, there is a spiritual canopy being stretched out over your life. Many people wake up and try to survive their day, but today, you are going to learn how to command your day. We are stepping into a frequency of prayer that doesn't just ask for a blessing, it activates a total, top to bottom divine saturation. In the next few minutes, we aren't just reciting words, we are engaging in a transformation. We are going to lock into a grace so thick that it shields your mind from every arrow of anxiety and stabilizes your feet against every trap of the enemy. If you have been feeling drained, if you've been walking through a season of not enough, or if you simply feel like we've been fighting your battles alone, this is your turning point. By the end of this prayer, you won't just feel better, you will be spiritually equipped. The chains of yesterday are about to hit the floor, and a shield of favor is about to settle upon you that no person and no circumstance can remove. Take a deep breath. Open your spirit. Let us step into the presence of the Almighty, where the atmosphere shifts and your victory begins. God's grace is about to cover you completely. The concept of the shield of favor as the first keynote of divine grace represents a spiritual shift from a defensive posture to one of proactive, supernatural protection. In the traditional sense, a shield is a reactive tool used to block incoming arrows or strikes, but the shield of favor operates as a preemptive atmosphere that surrounds the believer long before a challenge even manifests. This grace is not merely a wall, it is a spiritual aura that precedes you into every environment, whether it be a boardroom, a difficult family gathering, or a moment of personal crisis. When we speak of this favor preceding you, we are acknowledging that God's presence moves ahead of your physical arrival, softening the hearts of adversaries, opening doors that were previously bolted shut, and creating a path of least resistance where there was once only friction. This is the essence of being covered from top to bottom. It is an all-encompassing perimeter that does not just protect your front, but shields your mind from doubt and your steps from stumbling. This favor acts as a divine filter, allowing only that which serves your growth and God's purpose to penetrate your inner peace. It changes the frequency of your day, where others might encounter hostility or closed doors. The person cloaked in the shield of favor finds unmerited assistance and sudden breakthroughs. This isn't about personal merit or having the right words to say. It is about the invisible weight of God's endorsement resting upon your life. In a Christian context, this shield is forged in the morning hours of prayer, where you consciously clothe yourself in the promises of the Creator. By acknowledging this shield, you are essentially declaring that you do not walk into the world's battles relying on your own strength or intellect. Instead, you are trusting in a spiritual reality that dictates your physical circumstances. It is the favor that surrounds the righteous as with a shield, meaning that even in the midst of a storm, there is a calm, protected space designated specifically for you. This shield also serves as a source of quiet confidence. You no longer have to push, shove, or manipulate your way through life, because you understand that the favor of the Almighty is working on your behalf in the unseen realm, turning obstacles into stepping stones and ensuring that no weapon formed against your spirit can prosper. Spiritual alignment, the second keynote of this divine journey, functions as the essential calibration of the human soul to the frequency of the Creator. To start the day with prayer is not merely a religious obligation or a checked box on a spiritual to-do list. It is the intentional act of tuning a delicate instrument before the symphony of the day begins. In the silence of the morning, the spirit of a person is often like a compass that has been tossed and turned by the magnetic poles of yesterday, worries, the weight of unresolved conflicts, and the heavy expectations of the world. Without alignment, we step into our routines governed by the flesh, that reactive, impulsive part of our nature that responds to stress with panic and to opposition with anger. However, through the discipline of morning prayer, we perform a spiritual reset. We align our internal rudder with the North Star of God's Word, ensuring that when the winds of daily life blow, whether they are the gale-force winds of a crisis or the subtle, draining breezes of mundane tasks, our ship remains on a steady course. This alignment ensures that our actions are governed by a supernatural peace, a shalom, that transcends human understanding. When you are spiritually aligned, you no longer move through the world as a victim of circumstance, reacting to every stimulus with heightened nerves. Instead, you move as a vessel of the divine, carrying a stillness within you that the world did not give and therefore cannot take away. This process is akin to a bridge being anchored deep into the bedrock. While the surface of the bridge may experience the traffic and noise of the world, its foundation remains unshakable and unmoved. By syncing your heart with God's heart at the break of dawn, you are essentially predeciding your reactions to the day's potential stressors. You are choosing to operate from a place of Sabbath rest, even while your hands are busy with labor. This alignment filters your perception, allowing you to see opportunities where others see obstacles and to hear the still, small voice of guidance amidst the roar of modern life. It is the vital connection that ensures the hour of the Holy Spirit flows unimpeded through your life, turning every interaction into a moment of grace and every challenge into a testament of faith. To be aligned is to be fully present, fully focused, and fully covered, moving in a rhythm of grace that is dictated not by the clock, but by the eternal presence of the Almighty. The third keynote, centered on total envelopment, explores the profound theological and practical reality of being covered from top to bottom by divine grace. This concept moves beyond the idea of grace as a mere safety net or a temporary patch used to fix the broken areas of our lives. Instead, it presents grace as a complete spiritual immersion, akin to being submerged in a boundless ocean of light. The top represents the sanctuary of the mind, the seat of our intellect, imagination, and identity. For grace to cover the top means that the very thoughts we think are filtered through a heavenly perspective. It is the sanctification of the headspace, where the helmet of salvation protects us from the arrows of self-doubt, condemnation, and the cognitive distortions that suggest we are alone or inadequate. When the top is covered, your mental narrative shifts from "I am overwhelmed" to "I am overseen," allowing a divine clarity to settle over your decision-making processes. As this grace descends, it flows down to the bottom, which symbolizes our walk, our foundation, and the literal ground we stand upon. To have grace at the bottom means that even when the path is rocky or the terrain is unfamiliar, your steps are ordered and your footing is secure. It suggests that God's mercy is already present at your destination before you even take the first step. This total envelopment creates a spiritual cocoon that leaves no part of the human experience exposed to the elements of despair. It addresses the totality of the human condition, the high-minded aspirations of our spirits, and the low-level, practical needs of our physical existence. This top-to-bottom coverage implies that there is no area of your life too small for God's attention or too large for His reach. Whether you are dealing with a complex philosophical crisis or the simple, wearing fatigue of a long day, the envelopment remains constant. It is an all-access pass to divine sufficiency that wraps around your vulnerabilities like a garment. By acknowledging this total coverage, you stop trying to earn a piece of favor and instead start living from a position of wholeness. You recognize that you are not just occasionally visited by grace, but that you literally live, move, and have your being within it. This immersion provides a sense of indestructible belonging, ensuring that every aspect of your being, from your highest thoughts to your lowest moments, is saturated with the transformative power of the divine presence. The fourth keynote, Morning Sanctification, defines the first hour of the day as the rudder of the soul, a nautical metaphor that illustrates how the smallest direction set in the quiet of dawn determines the entire trajectory of the ship's journey. Just as a massive vessel's course is dictated not by the vastness of the ocean or the strength of the winds, but by the position of a relatively small rudder, our spiritual and emotional direction for the day is set by the intentions we establish before the world begins its clamor. Sanctifying the morning means setting the day apart as holy, reclaiming the first moments from the pull of digital distractions, urgent emails, and the immediate weight of anxieties. It is an act of spiritual sovereignty where you refuse to let the world dictate your mood or your focus. By dedicating the first fruits of your time to prayer and reflection, you are establishing a spiritual momentum that carries you through the inevitable storms and stressors that arise later. If the rudder is left unhandled or is turned toward fear and haste, the soul drifts into reactive patterns, tossed about by the opinions of others or the pressure of deadlines. However, when the rudder is firmly gripped through morning sanctification, the soul is steered toward peace, purpose, and divine poise. This practice acknowledges that the human spirit is most malleable in the moments immediately following sleep. It is during this window that we can most effectively set our minds on things above. This isn't merely about feeling good, it is about functional stability. A sanctified morning creates a reservoir of internal strength that you draw upon when your patience is tested or your courage is required. It is the process of putting on your spiritual armor before you walk onto the battlefield, ensuring that you are not caught off guard by the day's challenges. In this sacred space, you are essentially pre-ordering your day, inviting the divine to take the lead and asking for the wisdom to discern between what is merely loud and what is truly important. When you steer the soul toward grace in the morning, you find that even when the winds change and the waves rise, your internal compass remains fixed on the steady light of God as presence, allowing you to navigate with a confidence that is not your own. The fifth keynote, Unmerited Sufficiency, dives into the transformative paradox that divine grace is not a reward for our perfection but a provision for our inadequacy. This principle rests on the profound spiritual truth that God, strength, is not just an addition to our human ability. It is perfected specifically in the moments and places where we are weakest. To understand unmerited sufficiency is to release the exhausting burden of performance-based spirituality, the idea that we must be strong enough, smart enough, or holy enough to earn God's help. Instead, this grace meets us in the gap between our limited capacity and the demands of our calling. It is the recognition that while we may be cracked vessels, it is through those very cracks that the light of the divine shines most brilliantly. When we start our day acknowledging this sufficiency, we shift from a mindset of lack to a mindset of abundance. We stop looking at our own empty hands and start looking at the limitless resources of the Creator. This grace is unmerited because it is a free gift, and it is sufficient because it is exactly what is needed for the specific trials of the current 24 hours. It is the manna for today, enough for every conversation, every decision, and every emotional hurdle. This concept is particularly powerful for the modern soul, which is often crushed by the weight of hustle culture and the constant pressure to be flawless. Unmerited sufficiency provides a spiritual rest. Even in the midst of activity, it allows you to say, I am not enough, but He is, and He is in me. This is the core of the top to bottom, covering that the grace covering your thoughts and your steps is not something you manufactured, but something you inherited through faith. It turns our vulnerabilities into platforms for God's glory. When you encounter a situation that exceeds your patience or your wisdom, you do not have to panic, because you are operating under a heavenly budget that never runs out. It is the assurance that for every mountain you face, there is a supply of grace that is higher than the peak. By leaning into this sufficiency, you find a quiet, indestructible confidence that doesn't depend on your circumstances or your track record, but on the unchanging character of a God who delights in using the weak to confound the strong. The sixth keynote, Breaking Chains, identifies spirit-filled prayer as a potent act of spiritual warfare that dismantles the invisible heavy chains of yesterday. Failures before the sun has even reached its zenith. We often wake up carrying the residual weight of past mistakes, the echoes of sharp words spoken in anger, or the paralyzing shadows of regret that seek to tether our future to our history. These chains are not made of iron, but of mental and spiritual bondage, guilt, shame, and the anticipation of repeated failure. To engage in a powerful morning prayer is to enter the courtroom of heaven and claim the liberty that has already been purchased for you. It is the moment where you consciously refuse to carry the dead weight of the previous day into the fresh territory of the new one. This process is essential because a person who walks in chains cannot run the race that is set before them. They are slowed down by a spiritual friction that drains their energy and dims their vision. Breaking these chains in the morning is an act of reclamation, where you declare that the old has passed away and behold, the new has come. It is a spiritual cleansing of the palate that ensures your soul is not contaminated by the toxins of yesterday's disappointments. When you pray with a spirit-filled intensity, you are activating a divine power that shatters the cycle of habitual defeat. You are essentially telling your soul that your identity is not defined by where you fell yesterday, but by the grace that is picking you up today. This keynote emphasizes that grace is not just a soft blanket, it is a hammer that breaks the yokes of oppression. It is the force that snaps the links of anxiety that try to bind your heart as soon as you open your eyes. By addressing these bondages at dawn, you ensure that you walk out of your door as a free being, unencumbered and lighthearted. This chain-breaking frequency changes how you interact with others. Instead of projecting your past hurts onto new situations, you approach every encounter from a position of wholeness and freedom. It is the daily exercise of spiritual emancipation, recognizing that the prison doors are already standing wide open, and all that is required is the faith to step out and leave the shackles behind in the darkness of the night. The seventh keynote, Prophetic Declaration, explores the transformative power of the spoken word as a tool for shifting both the internal mindset and the external atmosphere from a state of survival to one of thriving. In the spiritual realm, silence is often a form of passivity, but a prophetic declaration is an active vocal partnership with divine intent. When a believer takes the promises of God the ancient, eternal truths found in Scripture and gives them a human voice in the early hours of the morning, they are doing more than just reciting facts. They are participating in the creative process. This keynote rests on the understanding that the tongue holds the power of life and death, and that speaking God's grace top to bottom out loud serves to anchor the wandering mind into a concrete reality of victory. By verbalizing your faith, you are commanding your emotions to fall in line with your spirit, rather than allowing your feelings to dictate your day. This practice acts as a bridge between the unseen word of faith and the visible word of circumstances. It is one thing to believe in one's heart that grace is sufficient, but it is a much more powerful act to declare, "Today, grace precedes me and favor surrounds me." This vocalization shatters the heavy silence of doubt and creates a resonant frequency of expectation. It shifts the internal identity from that of a victim, someone to whom things happen, to that of a victor, someone through whom God works. A prophetic declaration is not wishful thinking or mere positive vibes. It is the legal claim of a spiritual heir standing on their inheritance. It transforms the atmosphere of a home or a workspace, clearing out the static of worldly negativity and replacing it with the clarity of divine purpose. When you speak these truths, your ears hear the conviction in your own voice, which strengthens your subconscious resolve and builds a muscle memory of faith. This ensures that when you encounter the inevitable challenges of the afternoon, your spirit has already pre-recorded the victory in the morning. It is the intentional choice to use your breath to build a cathedral of praise rather than a prison of complaints, ensuring that your perspective remains elevated above the fray. By speaking life into your day before the day has even begun, you are essentially setting a spiritual thermostat, determining the climate of your soul regardless of the weather outside. The eighth keynote, the presence of the Comforter, illuminates the profound shift from a morning ritual to a continuous, day-long partnership with the Holy Spirit. Inviting the Comforter into the first moments of the day is not a temporary visitation, but an intentional welcoming of a constant companion who remains long after the prayer closet door has closed. In the Christian tradition, the Comforter is the Paraclete, the one called alongside to help, counsel, and sustain. By acknowledging this presence at dawn, you are ensuring that the spirit-filled aspect of your morning prayer becomes a lingering fragrance that permeates the mundane tasks of your schedule. This presence acts as a divine stabilizer. While the world around you may be chaotic, loud, or demanding, there is an internal sanctuary where the Comforter speaks peace and provides direction. This keynote emphasizes that the grace covering you from top to bottom is not a static shield but a living, breathing relationship. As you move from the sanctuary of prayer into the pressures of work, family, and social obligations, the Holy Spirit functions as a spiritual whisperer, providing just-in-time wisdom for difficult conversations and supernatural patience for frustrating delays. This continuous presence transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, turning a simple commute or a routine meeting into a place of divine encounter. It prevents the spiritual leakage that often happens when we encounter the friction of reality. Instead of losing your peace as the day progresses, you find that the Comforter is constantly refilling your reservoir. This relationship offers a sense of profound security, knowing that you are never navigating the complexities of life in isolation. The presence of the Comforter also serves as a moral and emotional compass, nudging you toward kindness when you are tempted to be sharp and toward courage when you are tempted to shrink back. It is the fulfillment of the promise that He will never leave you nor forsake you. By prioritizing this connection in the morning, you sharpen your spiritual ears to hear His guidance throughout the day. As noise, you become a person who carries a different atmosphere, a presence that others can feel, which is actually the reflected light of the Comforter dwelling within you. This ensures that your morning prayer is not just a start to your day, but the beginning of a walk in the Spirit that sustains you until the sun goes down. The ninth keynote, Divine Provision, addresses the radical trust required to believe that before you even encounter a specific need, the grace of supply has already prepared the solution in the unseen realm. This is the spiritual realization that we do not serve a God who reacts to our crises, but a God who proactively anticipates our requirements. In the context of a morning prayer that covers you top to bottom, divine provision means that God has already walked through your entire day from the morning commute to the final conversation of the evening and has deposited exactly what you will need at every coordinate of your schedule. This concept shifts the believer's focus from a scarcity mindset, where one is constantly worried about running out of time, money, or energy, to an abundance mindset rooted in the character of the provider. It is the assurance that when you reach a Red Sea moment in your day, the path through the water has already been designated, even if you cannot see it from the shore. This grace of supply is not just about material resources. It is the provision of an idea when you are stuck, the provision of a friend when you are lonely, and the provision of supernatural endurance when your physical body is exhausted. By starting the day with this recognition, you are essentially cashing a heavenly check before you even enter the marketplace of the world. It allows you to move with a quiet pause, knowing that you are backed by the limitless treasury of heaven. You no longer have to live in a state of frantic hustle to make ends meet or to force doors open through human manipulation. Instead, you can operate with the confidence of an invited guest, knowing that the host of your life has already made the necessary arrangements. This keynote challenges the human tendency to rely on what is visible and tangible, calling us to a higher level of faith where we trust the source more than the resource. It is the understanding that while the world as systems may experience inflation, drought, or lack, the kingdom of grace is always in a state of overflow. When you settle this truth in your heart at dawn, you find that your anxiety over the how and the when begins to dissolve into a deep peace. You become like the birds of the air or the lilies of the field, existing in a state of total dependence that is met with total faithfulness, walking through your day as a beneficiary of a divine inheritance that is always precisely on time. The 10th keynote, Radiant Reflection, serves as the ultimate outward manifestation of being covered top to bottom by divine grace, illustrating that a life truly saturated in morning prayer becomes a mirror for the character of the Creator. When a person is deeply enveloped in the shield of favor and aligned with the Spirit, the internal transformation inevitably spills over into their external environment. This is the stage where grace moves beyond personal benefit and becomes a public ministry. You cease to be merely a consumer of God's mercy and start to become a distributor of it. Just as the moon has no light of its own but glows brilliantly by reflecting the sun, a believer who has spent their first hours in the presence of the Almighty carries a spiritual glow into the dark or gray spaces of the world. This radiant reflection means that your presence in a room changes the atmosphere, not because of your personality or charisma, but because of the scent of the divine that clings to you from your morning communion. You become light bearer in the most practical sense, offering a calm word to a stressed colleague, showing unnatural patience in a chaotic situation, or providing a listening ear to the brokenhearted. This reflection is the top to bottom covering in action. Your mind, the top, reflects God as wisdom, and your walk, the bottom, reflects His integrity. It is the fulfillment of the call to be the light of the world, proving that the grace you received in private has the power to illuminate the public. This keynote emphasizes that your life is the only Bible some people will ever read, and by carrying this radiance, you provide a tangible testimony of God's love and peace. It turns your daily interactions into a living prayer, where your actions speak of a hope that is not shaken by the morning news or the fluctuations of the economy. When you are a radiant reflection, you attract those who are searching for meaning, and you repel the shadows of cynicism and despair. This radiance is not a mask of perfection, but a transparency of spirit that shows how God's strength works through human weakness. It is the final piece of the spiritual morning routine, ensuring that the blessing you received at dawn does not end with you, but flows through you to a world that is desperate for a glimpse of the divine. By walking in this light, you prove that the prayer, God's grace will cover you, is a living, breathing reality that has the power to change not just your day, but the lives of everyone you encounter. In conclusion, as we stand at the close of this sacred time together, remember that you are not walking out into the world alone or unprotected. You are a person who has been intentionally saturated in the presence of the living God. This top to bottom covering is not a temporary feeling, but a permanent spiritual identity that you carry into every room, every challenge, and every victory. Let the shield of favor be your confidence, let the comforter be your guide, and let the radiant reflection of His love be your testimony to a world in need of hope. You have broken the chains of yesterday, you have declared your victory in the Spirit, and you are now moving in a rhythm of grace that is unstoppable. Go forth with the assurance that the same God who awakened your soul this morning is already standing in your future, preparing the way and providing for every need. Stand tall, walk in peace, and live as the favored child of the King you truly are. Good luck on your journey ahead. May your creative work and your videos reach the hearts of millions, serving as a beacon of wisdom and transformation. It has been a true pleasure to collaborate with you on such a powerful and spirited project. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your vision. I look forward to seeing the incredible impact your content will make. Keep shining.